violence in these communities themselves. Studies show that persistent gun violence in poor communities of color directly results from centuries of entrenched disadvantages, economic deprivation, and racist policymaking. In many ways, gun violence is the last domino to fall at the end of a long line of racism, trauma, and indifference. But this is not inevitable. Community-based intervention programs throughout the country have proven that holistic, culturally sensitive, embedded teams can stop violence before it starts. We demand funding for these programs. We've seen the shooting from our high school gain worldwide attention. But the mass shooting that happened in Southeast DC 3 weeks ago, where 17-year-old Christopher Brown lost his life and 20 people were wounded, got no attention. Be outraged equally for Black lives. It is important that as I talk about gun violence, I address police violence. We must shift from a punitive to a rehabilitative model in the prison system. There is a need for a national conversation of defunding police departments and refunding our communities instead. We must reallocate those funds into schools, jobs, and needs for a comfortable life. We need to revisit the use force practices and eliminate conduct that places suspects at extreme harm once in custody. As has been established, officers nationwide lack accountability. For an officer who knows that he can kill an unarmed Black man or woman and only get paid desk duty as an assault, anything less than that is business as usual. We must change this reality and empower citizens of the communities being policed to hold their local forces accountable. It is important that we recognize that the systematic oppression that continues to marginalize our communities is not an accident. America was built on a system that is still doing its job. Police violence is gun violence, and gun violence is a leading cause of death for Black youth. We demand to live in peace. We demand to live in spaces where the best of Black culture can thrive, where Black men are more likely to have a mortgage and a picket fence than a record, where Black women are business executives and vice presidents, where our trans sisters and brothers don't fear being themselves. But this dream that Rev. Al Sharpton, that Martin Luther King III have for Black Americans cannot be realized until we have a federal government with our best interests at heart. For our part, Brady and Team Enough are engaged in a campaign to remove barriers to casting a ballot, making vote by mail available to all, ensuring ballot drop boxes are distributed equitably, restoring the voting rights of Americans who have paid their debt to society. We have so much good trouble to get into. I want to thank the community organizers of National Action Network, and especially their organizer-in-chief, the Reverend Al Sharpton and Martin Luther King III, for the work that they do, not just today, but every day, and giving us a place at the table. As I returned from Louisville yesterday, where Breonna Taylor was brutally killed by LMPD, it is still clear that Black women are still unprotected. As I stand here in pain from the aftermath of tear gas and rubber bullets, I realize that Black women are still the backbone of this movement. My name is Alea Eastman, a student at Trinity Washington University, executive council member of Brady's Team Enough, co-founder and core organizer of Concerned Citizens DC, a grassroots group of young Black organizers demanding true liberation for Black people. Thank you. All these guys work for you. What did he fucking do? Or you just said what he did, how do you fucking know? But did you see him do that? So you did see him do it? You did see him do it? You got run over without running, get fucking arrested? What did you get arrested? Okay, well, I'll put it in place and then determine that. And then determine that. So when you see that they shut it up over and you don't know it. W. King. He's the president of New Jersey.
Y'all ready to smoke? I'm almost ready for a smoke break. That's why we're getting all this shit together right now.
1983, after he was asked to join the International Brotherhood of Teamsters as a field representative, one of his assignments included Local 331. The members of the local asked King to stay on, and King was successful in being elected president in 2009, re-elected in 2012, 2015, and 2018.
There we go.
King has served on the UPS Supplement Negotiation Committee for Philadelphia Metro Area and the National Master Freight Supplement Panel. Please welcome Marcus W. King.
Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Al Sharpton, Martin Luther King Jr. III, and the National Action Network for assembling us here today. This is an awesome event. Brothers and sisters, good morning. It's an honor to be with you. As the young lady just said, my name is Marcus King. I'm the director for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Human Rights and Diversity Commission. And I bring you greetings on behalf of our General President, James B. Hoffa. The Teamsters Union have a long history of standing not only for members, but for those Americans who have been discriminated over and overlooked. For 57 years after the first March on Washington, the Teamsters have again stand with you proud to reaffirm our support for racial and economic equality in this country. The Teamsters brothers and sisters, black, white, men, women, all stood with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to fight for justice. And now we must finish the fight.
So they have a riot squad posted up.
We must finish this fight. We must complete the mission for genuine equality. There are forces out there working against us to dismantle the union and labor laws. They have circumvented civil rights laws in our courts. They have manipulated our elections to try to block our vote. They have denied this job promotion because of the color of our skin. They have stolen wages from us by perpetuating minimum wage standards that no one can survive on. Yes, they even are going after labor unions. They have tried to systematically strip away the voice to protect workers as we fight for fair wages, equal pay, good health care, and a decent pension for retirement. And now they're trying to separate American labor by putting a gap between the have and the have-nots. As it gets wider and wider, just look at Jeff Bezos, what he made this year. Brothers and sisters, it's time for action. Words are not enough. We will not be ignored any longer. We can change it now. So there's three things that I'm going to ask you to do. One, lobby members of Congress to pass H.R. 71, the Justice and Policing Act, George Floyd Act. 2, lobby H.R. 4, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. But most important, number 3, we must vote. This coming November, we must vote. We have to tell this country, take the knee off our necks. Use your voice for those who can no longer be with us. Make your voice count. Jacob Blaine, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Do it for my brother Teamster, Philando Castile, who was killed by Minnesota police. Or do it for you. Make your voice count. Make it a better place for us and our children. Black lives do matter because our lives matter. Stay safe. God bless you. All of my brothers and sisters in the movement, Teamster Strong. My name is Marcus King, and I'm the Director for Human Rights and Diversity for the Teamsters International Union. Thank you.
And I hope that it continues, that we see solidarity for everybody. But it can't just be here. It can't just be with the team. I need your solidarity.
This guy's got story. That's his story.
Next we have Alan Roscoff, proudly co-authored the nation's first gay rights bill in 1970 and served as its chief lobbyist. In 2004, he formed the Jim Owls Liberal Democratic Club, which is a citywide LGBTQ organization serving all of New York City. New York Magazine dubbed him as Al Sharpton's ambassador to the gay community in the 80s, and he currently serves as secretary of the Civil Rights Museum, built in Harlem, New York, under the leadership of Reverend Al Sharpton. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hey, hold on.
Danny. Danny.
I'm here to tell everybody that the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community is part of this struggle. We join with Black Lives Matter. We march with you. We get arrested. We risk arrest, and we get brutalized in support. After all, the gay rights movement was formed because of brutality of the police in a bar known as Stonewall. Until the Black community is recognized as an equal community, until the police harassment, the police belittlement, the police shootings, and the police killings, we will stand united. We are all one. We want you to know that we will continue demonstrating. We will continue marching. We will continue to protest. We will continue to upset the power structure. We will continue to risk arrest. We will continue to be arrested. We will be part of this movement, and in all the demonstrations and protests in New York and across the country, you can see our rainbow flag and our rainbow banners. Black Lives Matter is one of the most important organizations and movements, one of the most important movements in this country and in history. I thank you all. I thank Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network for putting this together and being such a good friend to the LGBT community. Together to victory and vote out the racist in the White House and vote out his entire administration and his supporters. Thank you.
We're live in Denver, Colorado right now, outside Denver 6th Precinct Police Station. The group of protesters are on the other block behind us. This is Denver Metro Task Force and Denver SWAT as well.
Nitty Sensabaugh.
So there's definitely
Joy.
Gonna be another.
That's right. Frank brought his crowd. Joined by fellow activist Sandy Solo. He is a Black Lives Matter protester, activist, and lead organizer for the 2020 walk from Milwaukee to Washington, D.C. Okay? To stand in solidarity with the National March on Washington, please welcome Frank Nitty Sensabaugh.
Hello, I'm Sandy Solo from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm here with activists Frank Nitty and Tori Lowe.
Come on, y'all. Let's get in this smoke session. Y'all ready? Oh, y'all still ain't ready
I'll
yet.
let Frank speak on the journeys, some of the things we faced during this journey. But I'd like to thank all of our Facebook friends who Cashapped us. I'd like to thank our photographers. I'd like to thank our videographers. I'd like to thank all the marchers who marched with us and all the caravan and the medic crews who came along with us. I love you and God bless you.
How y'all doing out there? My name is Frank Nitty, all right? They only gave me 2 minutes, so I'm not going to talk about my journey. I'm going to talk about what I came here to talk about, all right? Now check it out. As activists around the country, we need to get organized. Every 3 months when a black person get killed, that shouldn't be the only time we find out about black people getting killed by the police. We need to get organized together as a nation of activists so we can call on each other whenever we need help. We need to demand change, not ask for change. They think this is a negotiation. This is not a negotiation. I came here to demand change. I'm tired. Are y'all tired? Because I'm tired. My grandsons ain't gonna be marching for the same stuff my granddaddy marched for. This is a revolution, all right? We just marched 750 miles from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 24 days to get here because we're not gonna stop until we get change. That's what we need in this country. All of y'all that came today, I know y'all been marching in y'all cities. I know y'all been marching. Don't stop marching. We gonna organize because they don't expect that. We gonna come together because they don't expect that. We gonna demand change because they don't expect that. We not gonna have our kids marching. This is it. We've been marching for the same stuff for 60 years. Black people shouldn't be marching for the same stuff Martin Luther King was marching for. I'm tired. I'm tired. And I'm tired of asking for justice. I just wanted to stop. We don't want justice. That's after a racist police do something to us. We need them out of the police. We need all these racist people gone. We need change. And we can get that by voting. Now, while we marched in 750 miles, everybody that came and chastised us, everybody that came with shotguns, everybody that came messing with us had Trump signs. Trump 2020. That's the new way that they did racism in this country and hide behind it. So we got to vote Trump out of office, all right? So when it's time to vote, we going to vote. And if y'all see me up here, if you an activist, stop me out there so we can organize. It's time. It's the revolution. This is the revolution.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Our next speaker is David Clooney. He's the Executive Director of the Black Economic Alliance, the nation's only coalition of business leaders and aligned
keeping an eye on the protests as well, okay?
And the Black community,
as well as letting the speakers have the stage.
Wages and wealth. Before joining BEA, David led the state and local government relations team at J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. He's a graduate of Howard University School of Law, where he was editor-in-chief of the Law Review, and the University of Albany State University of New York, and sits on the board of the National Urban League. Please welcome David G. Clooney.
I lead the Black Economic Alliance of Black business leaders and allies dedicated to improving work, wages, and wealth for Black people. We know the 1963 March on Washington was a march for jobs and freedom. In over 50 years, the wealth gap between Black and white Americans has not changed significantly. In fact, by some measures, it's even wider today. But we're at an inflection point. It may have taken 400 years plus 8 minutes and 46 seconds to get here, but there's an increasing recognition that systemic racism continues to oppress Black people in every part of American life. So what do we do with this moment? Of course, we need to continue to fight for social justice, but we also need to fight for economic justice from our elected leaders and in the business community. We need to fight for better work, wages, and wealth for Black people. That's skills training for the future of work, closing the Black-white pay gap, and building generational wealth for Black families. Right now, we absolutely have to vote. Congress should pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to ensure free and fair elections. And just like we're showing up to march across America, we have to show up and vote. Over 40 states will allow early voting this year, so vote early if you can. Make a plan and make sure your vote is counted well before Election Day. We owe it to the civil rights giants who marched, bled, and died for us. We owe it to the families of countless Black people lost to unchecked institutional racism. We owe it to America to help her keep her promise to all of us. I am so inspired by the demand for justice that's emanating from every corner of America right now. The march on every platform we have. In the streets, in the halls of Congress, in the corporate boardrooms, and with our vote, so we can finally achieve social and economic justice. Thank you.
Coming to the stage is Portia Taylor. She's a brand builder, music lover, sport bike rider. Portia Taylor is the founder of Black Girls Ride, a magazine and community originally launched as a place for women of color who ride, which has since grown to include all women. What inspired her to launch Black Girls Ride was the lack of representation that she saw when she started riding, especially long distance. But not developing brand campaigns, spinning at the hottest parties, or on her way up to, quote, occupy the gym, Portia can be found rolling in her pink abaya. No, I said that wrong. I don't even ride. And always living her best life. Please welcome Portia Taylor.
Good afternoon. I'm Portia Taylor, and I'm here as a representative of Black Girls Ride. More than a magazine, we are a movement of women passionate about motorsports. Over 100 women rode across America to be with you here today. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Women of color on ground traveling across the land of the free. We are your mothers, your grandmothers, your aunts, your sisters, and your daughters. Our ride started Monday in Long Beach, California. As we rode through Texas, I thought about my soror, Sandra Bland, and how a simple traffic stop ended in her death. We all witnessed George Floyd's death as he cried for help. The heartbreaking death of Breonna Taylor as she slept in her home. And less than a week ago, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back and paralyzed. With each act of senseless violence, we feel a stirring in our collective soul. When a call to march was issued, we knew it was time to mount up. We packed up our bikes and rode thousands of miles in protest against police brutality. We ride unapologetically for Black lives, and we raise our throttle hand in support of those on the front line of our struggle. We ride to ensure the freedom of our future leaders. We've come a long way, but our journey is not over. In November, Black Girls Ride will rev our engines. We will lead the ride to the polls and fuel the ballot boxes of this nation to choose a leader that will provide the unity our country desperately needs. We invite you to join in this and vote like your life depends on it. Thank you. Introduction and stays on the front line. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She's an activist, a legislator, a survivor, and the first woman of color to be elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Throughout her career as a public servant, Congresswoman Pressley has fought to ensure that those closest to the pain are closest to the power, driving and informing policymaking. Prior to her being elected to Congress, she served on the Boston City Council for 8 years and was the first woman of color elected to the council in its 100-year history. Please welcome Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Good morning, beloved. Today, I am thinking of the ancestors, not just the ones recorded in our history books, but the ones omitted from those pages. The justice seekers, the freedom riders, the organizers, the community builders,
check on the
Let
protest.
me make it plain.
Make sure everything's
Black
okay.
lives matter.
It's the most updated one as of right now.
Our next speaker is Representative Adriano Espaillat. Espaillat proudly represents New York's 13th Congressional District, first elected to Congress in 2016.
Y'all ready to
Espaillat
smoke?
is serving his second term in Congress, where he serves as a member of the influential U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, and the House Small Businesses Committee. Throughout his 10-year career in public service, the congressman has been a vocal advocate for protecting tenants, improving schools, and making serious, smart investments in economic development, job creation, environmental protection. Prior to coming to Congress, he served as a New York State senator, during which he represented the neighborhoods of Marble Hill,
All right, come on, let's
Inwood,
go.
Washington Heights, Hamilton Heights, West Harlem, Upper West Side, Hell's Kitchen, Clinton, and Chelsea. Please welcome U.S. Representative Adriano Espaillat.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Reverend Al Sharpton. Thank you, National Action Network. Thank you all for being here on this great
Let's go. Y'all ready?
I bring
Let
you
me go invite
greetings
the
from
chat.
Harlem, the capital of the African diaspora in the world. From East Harlem, the launching pad of the Latino experience in New York State. From immigrant Washington Heights, Hamilton Heights, Inwood, and working class Northwest Bronx. Over 50 years ago, the great Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis stood here and shared their dreams with all of you. Today, as the first formally undocumented member of Congress, I stand here with you today to say that yes, I am a man. That yes, we shall overcome. That yes, sí se puede. That yes, Black Lives Matter. And that yes, without no justice, there will be no peace. We come here today burying the scars and the wounds of 400 years of struggle to say that whether your ancestors picked cotton or whether they cut sugarcane, we're all in the same boat right now. We must pass legislation to ensure that there is police reform. We must pass the pieces of legislation highlighted in the Harlem Manifesto against
Corporate
police
oppression.
brutality that are all included
The corporate
in the George
oppression
Floyd
of white
Justice and
supremacy
Policing
in
Act.
America.
Let's get rid of the chokehold. Let's get rid of the need. We also must pass the John Lewis Voters' Rights Advancement Act to ensure that we all be able to vote. We must enact criminal justice reform. Let's do away with the death penalty. Let's do away with solitary confinement. Let's do away with mandatory minimums. I am a man. We shall overcome. Sí se puede. No justice, no peace, and Black Lives Matter. God bless you and keep the faith.
Up next is Representative Charles Booker. a 36-year-old state legislator born in Louisville, Kentucky. He successfully ran for State House in Kentucky in 2018, becoming the youngest African-American in the House in more than 90 years, where he fought for common sense gun safety reform, prescription drug cost relief, voter protection and restoration in support of labor unions, for economic justice, against racial injustice, and more. Representative Booker recently founded Hood to the Holler, a 501c4 to capture the energy and infrastructure he built in his run to continue to build power, work on voter registration, and more, and to help positively transform our future. Please welcome Representative Charles Booker.
We stand here in the legacy of the dream. The dream that Dr. King lifted up, that Whitney Young pushed for, that Mattie Jones fought for, that my granddad Lindsey E. Hearn Sr. demanded. We're here today because we know that dream is not done. Because although they marched for us then, the cries we're hearing across the country right now, from Kenosha to Kentucky, from the hood where I'm from, to the hollers in Appalachia, to everywhere in between, those cries let us know we have more marching to do. And it is in this moment where we must rise up together. Because listen, we are built for this moment. We are on the shoulders of giants, but we must step off of those shoulders and lead ourselves. We are the dream, but we must turn that dream into demands. Demands for real justice. Demands for humanity. Demands for accountability. Demands for an end to poverty. Demands for an end to racism. And I am a living witness. As the youngest black state legislator in Kentucky since the first one, and yes, I did stand up and run against Mitch McConnell. I am a personal witness that we are ready for this moment. We're built for the work we must do. And if we come together, all of us, if we stand united, if we march together, if we bend that arc together, there is nothing we can't do. There is no mountain we can't move. And there is no root of racism we cannot pull up. So we got to do it right now. We got to do it yesterday, so we definitely got to do it now. And I stand here as a young man in the legacy of a giant, Congressman John Lewis, who said 57 years ago some words that still ring true right now. We have to lift our voices together and say to America, wake up. Wake up, America. Because we can't stop, we cannot quit, and we cannot be patient. Let's win together. Let's fight together. Let's transform our future. Brianna, I'm representing you right now. Thank you all.
Next, we have Tyleek McMillan. He serves as the National Director of Youth and College Engagement and is a policy advisor for the National Action Network. A recent graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, Tyleek is a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, the Eta chapter, and hopes to one day serve as a legislator on the Hill. Please welcome Tyleek McMillan.
I give honor to the conveners, my boss and mentor, Reverend Al Sharpton, and Martin Luther King III. I'm not here to ask for justice. We're not here to negotiate justice. But we are here to demand justice. Far too many times we have been cut out. Far too many times we have been budgeted out, counted out, resourced out. It's time for legislators to invest in education. It's time for legislators to invest in mental health services. It's time to invest in communities. And I love my 1891. It's time to invest in historically black colleges and universities. Because we don't deserve just a $0.50. We don't just deserve the quarter of the dollar, but we deserve the whole dollar. Dr. King spoke about the check that bounced in the Bank of Justice. And we've come to let the teller know at the bank that this check better not bounce. Because we will march and we will fight because that's what we deserve. In the words of Dr. King in closing, and again, we come to cash the check, a check that is willing to demand the rights of freedom and security of justice. Thank you. No justice.
Millions of American families. As a key figure in the Latino community, she continues this mission as president and CEO of United U.S., a large national Hispanic civil rights and
I'm president and CEO of Unidos US, the largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization in the country. Traditional racism in our
friend Dr.
Hold on, y'all.
Richardson, who serves on the board of several corporations and national organizations and is currently chairman of the board for the National Action Network. Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson is pastor of the historic Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, New York. He leads the largest African-American church in Westchester County, with a membership base of over 3,000 parishioners.
We served by reforming tactics or trainings. Here's a simple truth. It's been 168 days.
It was glitching out,
since
y'all.
Breonna Taylor was killed in her own home. No charges have been filed. The system is not broken. It is working as it was designed, and we must change it. Today, we must recommit to defend Black lives, to end police brutality, and the racist system that upholds it. We must recommit to fight voter suppression and the impact of a politicized decennial census like we have never seen. Just as the 1963 march and the mass demonstrations of communities across the country shepherded the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, we must not stop until we have secured the passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, the Khalid Jabara and Heather Heyer No Hate Act, and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Just as matter is the minimum, these important legislative priorities must be where we start. Thank you.
Download the full high definition beat after purchase.
All right, y'all.
Please welcome to the stage Dr. Jamal Bryant. He's a visionary, civil rights activist, community organizer. Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant combines sound biblical teaching, business acumen, and political insight to propel the body of Christ to action and greater levels of faith. His ability to reach across social, economic, and political barriers has helped people not only experience the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ, but to activate success in their everyday lives. His ministry has become an incubator for entrepreneurs, homeowners, and like Dr. Bryant, is a senior pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia. Please welcome Dr. Jamal Bryant.
And a second as well.
To our convener, organizer, and visionary,
Colorado, Washington, D.C.,
this hour, Reverend
Oakland, California.
We thank him for his courage and for his faith and for his distinction, as well as his commitment to civil rights down through the years.
LBeats.com.
Brothers and sisters, not since 44 BC, when Marcus Aurelius Junius Brutus led 59 accomplices to stab Julius Caesar in the back, has there been such a heinous crime as the slaying of Jacob Blake. 7 times they shot him in the back. And today, while it is that you stand, Jacob finds himself paralyzed from the waist down. Not from these steps, but Dr. King said that we as a people should not find ourselves caught in the paralysis of analysis. In other words, our coming together is in vain if we just talk about the problems, but don't chart a course towards the solution. Harriet Tubman, who said, I freed thousands of slaves, but I would have freed hundreds more had they known they were slaves. I only thought about that when I saw the slaves on TV this week endorsing Donald Trump. I said, if only they knew they were slaves, they could have been rendered free. We cannot remain paralyzed. We can't be paralyzed wondering whether or not we're going to support the very first black female vice president in the United States. Don't tell me about what it is that she did in the past and you not talk about what she wants to do in America in the future. She wants to make sure that we get rid of privatized prisons, that there are no more mandatory minimums, and marijuana is no longer an illegal substance. We cannot be paralyzed knowing that she graduated just a few miles from here, from the original HU. And those of us who are products of HBCUs, you ought to be making some noise right now, knowing what it can develop and what it can deliver. We cannot be paralyzed. We cannot allow white evangelicals to paralyze us, saying that they cannot support our agenda because they're for pro-life. Don't tell me you're for pro-life and white evangelicals are silent when black people are dying in the street like dogs. We cannot be paralyzed. The black church, you cannot be paralyzed, saying that you're not going to support Black Lives Matter because of 3 fearless black sisters who happen to be lesbian. We've got to love our LGBTQ community, realizing that those are our sons and those are our daughters. We cannot be paralyzed. We cannot be paralyzed into believing Mr. Jones' water is colder. This is the time where we've got to support black businesses because too many of them are closing down because of COVID-19. Not because they don't have adequate service, but because they don't have adequate support. But what America has to know about the tenacity of black people is that even when you render us paralyzed, we still know how to crawl. And on November 3rd, no matter what you do, we gonna crawl to the polls. If you take away the mailbox, we still gonna crawl. You take away the polling stations away from our community, we still gonna crawl. We gonna sing the original gangster rap music. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go on to my Lord and be free. We still gonna crawl. There is something about us that understands that we stand today with our brother Jacob, realizing that even if we find ourselves paralyzed and you force us to crawl, we are like butterflies, because butterflies only have 2 options. They crawl and then they fly. And we understand in this hour, this is the hour for black people to fly. Maya Angelou said, you can write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. But still like dust, we rise, we rise, we rise. And if you don't know Maya Angelou, the least you can do is
the Migos. And black people from here until November 3rd, we gotta walk it like we talking. We gotta keep moving until our generation takes the baton, changes the country, and makes America great for the very first time. Black people, rise up and accomplish what you will.
Clearly came with an agenda, and we know they're armed, so it'd be really nice to not have a repeat of Kenosha.
Congressional District of Texas, centered in Houston, the energy capital of the world, and sits on 3 congressional committees: the House Committee, the Judiciary and Homeland Security Committee, and the crucial Budget Committee. She's the author of the Emancipation National Historic Trail Study Act and the lead sponsor for H.R. 40, the commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans.
So we're gonna fade to the background. I love